Welcome to the Channel Champions podcast, powered by Evolve IP, hosted by Zach Anderson. Today, we'll explore the always evolving landscape of the IT, telephony, and communications channel. If you are a trusted advisor, strategist, IT consultant, or sales engineer, this one's for you. Today's guest is...
Welcome, everybody, to the Channel Champions podcast. Today, I have Mr. Craig Beason, who is the founder and CEO of Renodis. Sir, I really appreciate you coming on. Will you go ahead and give us an intro?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, thanks for asking me, Zach. I appreciate you taking the time to do this as well. Yeah, so Craig Beason started Renodis about 23 years ago. And really the crux of starting the company, though, was I really wanted to build a managed service company around the telecom stack. Really kind of focus on that router phone system out, kind of staying away from the internal IT. I thought there was a need in the marketplace, and that's what got us started day one.
Nice. And how did you come up with the name Renodis?
It is a completely fabricated name. I was sitting talking through the business plan with someone that I respected to start up a couple companies. And he goes, business plan looks great. He goes, what are you going to call the thing? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Didn't think about that piece of it. And he literally wrote it down on a napkin at the restaurant I was sitting at. And I'm like, I go, well, what's it mean? He goes, I don't know. He goes, it's got a good ring to it. I'm like, there we go.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so you've been, you started at what year? You said 23 years ago. Is that right?
23 years ago. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm always curious, to know kind of like what the landscape was like when you started your company. Like, what did the channel look like? What was the technology space like? Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's transformed a lot. I mean, day one, really the focus was, we wanted to build a managed services company out, but I was 27 at the time, newly married. First baby on the way, wife just took voluntary layoff. So day one, it was like, okay, another advice that I got from the same individual, it's cash in the door is the most important, because eventually you run out of cash. And if you don't figure out how to bring that cash in the door, then you eventually just die, whether that's 6 months or 18 months, however long it is. So at the time, the opportunity really sat with, getting partnerships with a couple key telcos. I think the first one we got was Quest at the time. And then AT&T as well, to provide some long distance challenges that Quest had within their regulated states. So we secured those two right away and just really hit the ground running, just trying to, get clients to buy from us. We didn't have any clients. So we really, that day one, though, we had a focus on 1,000 employees up. We thought that was a space that had the most need. So we really never lost sight of that. And really for the first couple of years, it was just, building networks, managing what we built, project managing the networks out. And we had a lot of success really since day one. There's, some key individuals that are still part of the telecom industry that, really helped us. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing, but there's some individuals that saw what we were doing, liked what we were doing, and really kind of, helped advise us, early on. Then in 2004, really early again, picked up the mobility play that we do, managing mobile devices. That was, we begrudgingly did it. We had clients asking us to help them out. We said, we don't do wireless stuff. We're wireline people. But in an annual planning meeting we had in 2004, the consultant we brought in to help us, he said, well, you're in communications. Last time I checked, cell phones were communications. So we got into that mobility management 2004. It was not ready. It was not prime time for enterprise. But we got into it, figured it out over a couple of years. Then kind of the evolution that happened after that was in 2006, we were, helping clients secure network, wireline facilities, helping stage, secure mobility devices. But everything we did was react. So customer service was down, they call us, we go fix it. Bill was broke, they call us, we go fix it. I'm like, you know what? That doesn't scale. It just isn't a scalable model. I said, we've got to find a way to proactively monitor the networks, proactively monitor the devices, proactively monitor the bills. And at the time, it was really early in the TEM space. TEM really was just starting to become a buzzword in 2006. But there was a company in St. Paul called Coius, and the owner of that company had built a temp software in '99. So we partnered with, his name was Steve Lambros. We partnered with Steve, the second half of 2006. Clients loved it. They loved the message. They loved the model. And that was really our entry point into that managed services, a chargeable event to deliver managed services. So in January 2007, I called Steve up and I was like, hey, our clients love it. It's going well, but honestly, it's got to be one brand. So either we have to buy you or we have to go build what you have. He was 53, 54 at the time, and he was looking for an exit strategy out. So we bought that business in 2007. And then overnight, we went from 12 employees to 28 employees, and doubled revenue. I was only 33 at the time, maybe. I don't even know how old it was, but so pretty young, pretty naive. So for the next couple of years, everything was a silo. So we help clients secure the right carrier, the right technology. We would manage the billing and invoices of the temp software. We'd manage the contracts through the temp software. We had a little knock in place doing that managed services. We had consultants in place, but we didn't really cross-pollinate the sales very well in the first couple of years. So in 2009, in our annual planning session, we said, okay, if we could destroy the company and rebuild it based upon everything we've learned over the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, what do we do? Who are we as an organization? And we decided what we were is we help build, manage, and run world-class telecom departments for kind of SMB enterprise. And that's 1,000 employees to 30,000 employees. Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to do. The problem was that this temp software we bought was a great software, very well engineered. It just was based on old technology. So we didn't have the right tool in place to scale anymore. We didn't have some of the right people in place and some of the right methodologies in place. So first and foremost was, let's go find the tool. The tool in 2009 did not exist. So we went and grabbed Microsoft Dynamics off the shelf and custom built Dynamics to be a software that we can build to manage and run these departments. Very purpose built, right? It took us a couple of years. I mean, we spent probably 2.5, 3 years building that out before we felt we were ready for prime time. When we felt like we were ready for prime time, there was an enlightened CIO that was in the Minneapolis area, and he had heard about what we were doing. He called me up and said, I hear about what you're doing. I really like it. I would like to be your first client. I'm going to help you make it enterprise ready. Now, you're going to give me a really good price for it, but once it's enterprise ready, he was very well respected in the industry. He goes, I'm going to go out and tell all my peers what we've done, why we did it, and the results. So we did spend about 18 months building that methodology and the practice out. 18 months afterwards, when it was ready for prime time, Joe did exactly what he said. And we kind of rode that Joe Topinka main opportunity for a couple of years after that, really adding a lot of net new enterprise clients and scaling what we had built out, really getting us into that managed services environment around the telco space. Then about 2018, we did our second acquisition. It was a company called USAcom that was a father-son that had started it up. And we competed with them in this marketplace, and they were looking for an exit, and they knew, we knew each other, and they called me up and said, we're looking to get out of the business. Would you guys help do a transaction with us? I said, yeah. I go, I love the business, love your clients. You got great employees. And through that transaction, I had an interim CFO at the time that had spent a lot of time at a publicly held company and a lot of M&A work. And we got together and we started thinking, boy, there's a lot of individuals in our industry that are aging or looking for an exit. It's not an industry a lot of the banking communities at the time understood. So it's really difficult to get financing around that. So we built out a good business plan to go and do roll up in 2018 after we acquired USAcom, which it's early on what we're seeing right now. Right now we're seeing a ton of roll up activity in the space. So that was really early into that space. So we set out to do that on our own. And then we had limited success early on because there wasn't a lot of other partners out there thinking about, what's around the corner and what retirement looks like. So we really had to just generate that knowledge base. And then, so there's some partners out there that just, they don't have the best put together books. And, if I'm investing in that, I need to make sure I know what I'm buying. And then 2020 hit, COVID paused everything out. We had just negotiated an agreement to help with a company called Cherry Tree. It's an investment banker to help us with this process. COVID hit. I said, hey, let's wait. Let's see what's going to happen here. What we saw was what I think most partners saw, that clients needed us more when COVID hit, because it was, work from home. It was increasing internet connectivity, getting connectivity, in individuals' homes for managing through the COVID times. So mid part of 2020, our business was healthy as ever. So we reignited the roll up strategy and brought on our investment banker, and then since then we've done a number of transactions, and it's been a really fun, interesting space, because what Renodis has done is we've developed a platform that, with the main services, to where we can add additional value and additional services, not just going out and procuring the network and the carrier services, but we would provide that additional value. So we know if we have a client that needs a new network, well, we manage the invoices, we manage the inventory, we manage the contracts, so we can develop the right process for them to go and secure that new technology, whatever it might be. Same thing on the mobile device side of the house. It's, we have clients getting ready to roll out new technology within mobile devices. We're managing the environment. We're managing the help desk component of it, the engineering aspect of it. So it just puts us in a stronger position. And as we've been buying companies, allowing and rolling those additional services out to those companies that we bought, it just makes that much more of a stickier product set with our good clients. And it provides that added value that we're seeing that the marketplace is really in demand for.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's interesting, the approach that you've taken, as opposed to, like a typical quote unquote agent, right, who would go out and find 3 different options for the customer, and say, pick which one is, makes the most sense or what have you. You're sort of taking the approach of like, well, whatever we can do in-house, we're going to do that and kind of offset that. And you're right. I mean, it does make for a stickier kind of customer, but also, I mean, it's more of a well-rounded product that you're giving them. You're not just, outsourcing the solutions. You're also saying, well, we can pull the levers and push the buttons too, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, agency work, I've always thought this, it's great work. It provides a great service. The unfortunate thing is we're not billing the client for that work. Once the contract's signed and the network's installed, we move down the value stack quite a bit, right? We're not as valuable at that point in time. So we kind of lose our face within the client. So when you're offering the managed services, when you're doing the day-to-day network monitoring, when you're doing when I'm fielding all the calls for, mobile device support, we're relevant, right? We're billing the client for those services. So we're not low on the value chain at that point in time. Because that's the unfortunate thing, is you get the tough work done, which is getting the network in, getting it operational, getting the right product set in. And then we kind of lose our face a little bit. It's the Lumen of the world, or the AT&T of the world, because that's who's getting the invoice. It really creates a stronger client position for us, which is what we've seen, which is why our average client is, I think, 13.3 years in tenure with us. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
And are you sort of regionally focused, or do you have clients all over the U.S. or global? Or
I mean, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of our clients are upper Midwest, but as we buy companies and expand that out, I mean, we're spanning to the East Coast now. We're getting down into the South. We definitely want to expand this model out through the acquisitions. We're heavily in Michigan because our CRO that just came on board lives in Michigan. Our CTO, who's our client advisory CTO, he lives in Michigan. So we're expanding the footprint out significantly outside just the upper Midwest.
Wow. So what's the next 5-year goal for you guys?
Yep. Yeah. We the goal is keep the M&A rolling. Keep organic growth. Organic growth is as important as M&A. Actually, you could argue maybe even more important. But really, the 5-year goal is as we're buying these agencies, it's really because we're not buying. Some of the PE firms out there buying contracts, right? We're buying businesses. We're buying people. We're buying good clients, and we're expanding our managed services product sets out into those clients. But it's really and professionally running the organization, right? We're very big on our culture, and that's very important to us. So we definitely look for the like-minded experience. But yeah, the next 5 years, it's organic growth and continue down the M&A activity.
So what do you think is different between like your strategy and some of the other, call it, mini TSDs, like some of the groups that have sort of conglomerated, if that's a word?
Yeah. So what we're different is we're direct sellers. So we don't have sub-agent channel. We're using the TSDs for, access to the carrier contracts and things like that. And they provide a very important, component to what we do, but we're right with the end user, right? So when we're driving that value, we're driving it with the end client in mind. So that's how we're different. The TSDs are providing that, that avenue for the contracts and the negotiated carrier agreements and things like that.
Nice. How like when did you notice in the beginning, like, because like we talked about as an agent or as a partner, you've got a couple different tracks you can take, right? Like, you can either be here's 3 solutions, pick one, or you can be like go the MSP route and kind of build it more foundationally. Like, what made you want to go the MSP route initially versus like more of the consultant, solution consultant type person?
Yeah. So I about 10 years ago, I was like, the agent model I felt was going to be a dying model because the value creation, like I said, it dissipates so quickly once everything's in, right? It's very difficult to create that added value once everything's set, right? I mean, there is some escalations and troubleshooting things that just periodically come up, but I did really feel that the agency needed to be married up with an extra set of value to those clients. And we're seeing it, right? I mean, when we first started, agents were very, we had a very small percentage of the overall business. And over the last 5 years, we're seeing that flip. We're seeing that the carriers are embracing what we're doing in the channel a lot more. They're seeing a lot more of that value creation. And I think they're going to expect and demand more of that value creation rather than just paying us a percentage. They're going to want us to deliver a lot more added value in assisting those customers to come within the different carriers. So I think early on I felt like we needed to do that. And now I think what we're seeing that value creation that's created. We're seeing that being driven by the carriers coming back saying, okay, if you're going to sell our services, that's great. But what additional value are you creating in order to do that? I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're going to continue to see a lot more of that, actually.
Mm-hmm. How have you all been able to, I guess, Renodis in general, how have you been able to navigate through the different, emerging technologies through the past 20 years?
Yeah. I mean, it's been challenging for sure. And even when we were smaller, it was even more challenging because there's so many carriers or so many different technologies. It's moving fast enough. It's hard to stay ahead of that curve. But bringing on the CTO, so we actually had a client CIO that worked with us for a number of years, and he just came one day and he's like, if there's an opportunity to work for you guys, I want to do it. So what we did is when we hired that individual, we tasked him with, staying out in front of the technology curve, and being our, kind of our person that arms all of our seasoned tenured salespeople with where the technology is going, how we're going to stay ahead of it. And then flip side, he's client facing. So he's out with our clients, because our CIOs they're generalists usually, right? They're not, they might have an infrastructure background or a software background, but for the most part, they're generalists who are running a business. So we use the CTO to be the individual that comes in to advise our CIOs on where this stack is going. And early on it was wide area networks and phone lines. And then all of a sudden that evolved to, from frame relay to MPLS, and then MPLS to DIA, and then SD-WAN, and, now, UC, contact centers, kind of the buzzword. And, we're hearing a lot about security, but we're being pretty thoughtful about what we want to be an expert in, because we don't want to go out and say we're security experts, because we're not. Now, that doesn't mean that eventually we might not develop specific skill sets within security, but we're very thoughtful in how and what we're pursuing, because we're not going to go out and tell a prospect or a client that we're this just to get agency commissions on it. We want to create a specific value and why they're doing business with us. And we have all kinds of stuff. You have IoT and you have AI now. And so it definitely, it's not getting any easier. But that CTO position really has been a great answer to staying out in front of that for us.
Yeah. I think, it's the concept of master of one versus jack of all trades thing is it's hard, because, you want to try to get in as many conversations or opportunities as possible based on what the end user organization needs. But, if you know a little about a lot, I think it sort of hamstrings you in certain conversations. And you definitely want to position yourself as the expert in the room sort of thing. That's how you're pitching your business, right? Otherwise they would just kind of do that work themselves,
Yeah, no, and that's specifically why we've stayed so laser focused on, if we say we can do it, we know it better than anyone else in the room. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what are some technologies that you feel like, aren't being talked about enough right now?
I really think, and one of the reasons why we made an investment in a company down in the South was, I do feel as though 5G as a service is going to be very impactful. I think it's going to kill coax. I think we're on the early stages of it right now, just as 5G becomes more stable and more relevant and in wider areas. I think that 5G, because 5G is going to develop, 6G is already being in the labs, right? So just the bandwidth opportunities that come out of that and the simplicity that goes around it, I think that 5G as a service is going to be a pretty exciting place. I think private and public cellular networks on campus stuff, I think that's going to be a very impactful space that we're seeing some very early wins with that private and public network. Just it's so much easier on a campus to get a 5G connectivity and put that signal out than it is to lay fiber everywhere. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot more effective. Right. It's a lot faster. So, yep. So I think those are going to be interesting things. AI is a whole interesting topic on how that's going to change everything that we're doing today. Right.
Right.
I think I don't know enough about it yet to speak to it, but we're watching AI pretty close for a variety of different reasons. Just even with what we do operationally, we think there's some AI solutions that make us more efficient and make what we do at lower cost, which then we can provide added value to our clients.
Yeah, AI is an interesting one. You hear a lot about how, AI is going to take people's jobs and stuff like that. And I think in some cases, maybe, but I think, as, in the past, 50, 60 years, as we've seen technology progress, some jobs go away, but other jobs are created, which I think is left out of the conversation. I don't know. It's a hard one for me because, some of the things that just take up a ton of time, you want to sort of outsource that or automate that. Right. But, there's always going to be a fear there, and change management is a tough thing to grasp for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, we look at just technology as a general, just like you said, it's not, we don't see it as a threat. We don't see it as affecting people's jobs. We look at it as a way to deliver a higher value of service to our clients, either whether it's faster or cheaper or more accurate whatever it might be, that's how we view technology, not as a threat. We view it as an opportunity to, just create a stronger value prop to our end users.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of value props, what has it been like? How has the evolution of the TSD affected partners over the last, just like in the time that you've been in this business?
Well, I mean, early on, I was opposed to using TSDs. Everything I wanted to do was direct. And that was that was a foolish, naive mistake on my end. I was just young and naive, but as the TSDs have evolved, right? And as we've turned down our direct contracts and married up with a couple of what I believe are the right TSDs, they're making our lives easier because we're not having to deal with agreements with with telecom providers. We're not having to worry about quotas. What we're worried about is we're about delivering high value to our clients, and the TSDs are helping us do that because they manage the noise around those carrier agreements. So that's been a nice evolution. I like the fact that they're starting to come together, especially the regional ones, because what it does is it gives us a louder voice. I mean, when you have TSDs that are managing hundreds of millions of dollars of carrier revenue and across multiple ones, and it's in a very professionalized approach, it makes the credibility of the end seller that much stronger. And we have a much larger voice because of it, I believe. So I've liked the evolution. I think it's been great. Early on, I think there were just too many small ones that didn't have a loud enough voice. But now with the half a dozen or so that are left, the voice is pretty loud, I think. Demands attention.
What do you think is causing the rise in these smaller TSDs today? I mean, but maybe besides like the private equity conversation, but just in general, like what do you think's driving, the smaller ones to pop up?
I mean, honestly, I guess I haven't focused on it too much, but I can't even think of, outside of one, I can't think of really any small TSDs that are even left. Now that Shepstone sold TBI to AppDirect, and
that's right.
The stuff that Avant's done to us, and then Bridgepoint, their whole model. I can only think of one, regional or smaller TSD that's out there. Outside of those, it's almost like the consolidations all happened.
Well, there's like the the Amplexes, the Blue Waves, TDM. It's kind of. So
I wouldn't call them TSDs. I call them like a super agent.
Okay.
Yeah. Super agent.
Yep.
I think it's a great thing. And the reason I think it's a great thing is based really upon the conversation I made about the TSDs, that as we get larger, as we get to become $100 million a year in revenue companies, and we're managing, multinational, huge corporations, we become just that much more of a industry. Before, when it was, even Renodis, when we were back in 2017, we were 50 FTEs, and for an agent, that's fairly large. Now we're 240 FTEs. If you look at Amplex and Blue Wave and Upstack and NetSpark, I mean, they're all doing the same thing that we're doing, and I love it. I think it's great because it makes our voice louder, and we're becoming more relevant. So instead of having to explain to an end prospect what we do and why we do it, a lot more now they're aware of what we do and how we do it. Whereas 5 years ago, it was a lot more explaining our business model to an end prospect. And we're starting to see a lot less of that explanation, a lot more people just kind of knowing that, we exist because of what's going on in the industry. So I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there are enough of the younger generation coming up into the channel to, take over what, like what you've built, or like, other agencies have built?
I really don't see a lot of younger people doing it, which is kind of a little bit of a concern, right? I mean, there needs to be a succession for when, the older generation, myself included, when we start to, look toward, the end game. Right. So I don't run into a lot of younger people doing it. Don't know why that is, because it's a easy model to start up. And it's a great, the entry to this business is fairly simple. Just if you just want to be an agent.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you think is going to happen? I mean, if there's nobody to replace,
I think it's probably happening. I think I probably just, because I've been so focused on M&A, I'm probably not as involved. I'm definitely not as involved with going to the TSD events and going to the panel show in Vegas. I mean, I haven't gone to that 4 or 5 years. And so it probably is happening. It's just, I'm probably just not as aware as others are.
Yeah. So, what other sort of, I don't know, call it, like what do you see of the channel community that is like alarming right now? Like what's some advice that you might have to the channel community right now?
I think the biggest thing is it's very easy to get into this business and work really hard and get it to a nice spot and then kind of take your eye off the ball. I mean, it's just easy to do, or you get on that hamster wheel and you get to a couple $1 million a month in base. And then all of a sudden, you have write downs, you have loss of clients. And that hamster wheel gets running pretty fast on you. And it's a really hard thing to get off that hamster wheel. And a lot of us have taught, the nice part about the agent world is for the most part, we're all in the same, we're all friendly, right? If there's something someone else is doing and I want to try to figure that out, most times they'll take the call and vice versa. I'm more than happy to see if I can help someone steer around a pothole that I drove straight into. But I think trying to figure out how to get off that hamster wheel, that's hard. We struggled with it for about right through that 2007 to 2010. That hamster wheel was we were on it and we were going as fast as we could possibly go just to keep up on it. But it is a really difficult thing to break.
So what about like, I always like to ask this towards the end of our episodes, but like if you had some advice that you could give to your younger self or somebody that's just starting out in the channel, like what would that advice be?
Boy, there's a lot. I'm trying to think what the most impactful would be. I think the biggest thing is, you always hear, don't burn a bridge. I think that's so important. Like I've kind of lived by that, but I had to learn that at a young age and the hard way. I think don't burn the bridge. Like you just never know when you're going to need that bridge to come back. There's a lot of really good people in this industry, a lot of really good people. There's bad people too. I mean, it's like everywhere, but it's relationships. Like, I'm very happy with the amount of relationships and the friends that I've developed over 20 years. Cause those calls happen. Like, I get into a jam or someone gets into a jam and it's like, oh, well, so-and-so maybe can help me out. You make those phone calls but just building those relationships is so important to what we do, I think. And not just on the vendor side, the carrier side, but the TSDs and your clients. And, you can't put a price tag on that relationship. Don't burn a bridge.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say to a supplier that, wants to try to do better and earn a partnership with you?
Be genuine. Yep. Be genuine. The people that I enjoy doing the business with the most are the people that they're genuine. I know that they, there's something they need to get out of it. We need to get out of it, but that being genuine goes a long way with me personally. And I think it does with a lot of people. The ones that just come because they want you to sell their stuff, you kind of lose that genuine aspect. And, it's not just going in a partnership like that. It's not just about selling their stuff. Sure, that's part of it, but it's about when stuff goes bad, that they're going to be there to support it because it will go bad. I mean, it's, every partnership we've ever had with every vendor has had, it's issues, and you got to know that there's someone there genuinely that will embrace it and we'll get it fixed hand in hand, because we go into the transaction hand in hand and we support the client through that same hand in hand approach.
Right. Yeah. It's something that, we talk about as a channel team all the time, and that I try to bring up, like, it's got to be, the relationships with our channel partners have to be more than just, hey, when's the next deal coming? Like what else, like, let's look at your customer base and let's see what, it's got to be more than that. So like, what have you seen as successful, like with some of your key relationships with suppliers that kind of helps strengthen those relationships?
Just spending time with each other. Like, that's why I went to, the Vegas shows every year. And, back when Quest did their program every year, I made it a point to go and be present, because developing those personal relationships can't just be done over the phone. In my mind, It's got to be done in person.
Sure.
And I've developed some like world-class relationships with multitude of different people over the, 20 plus years. And it's spending that time together. It's not just about the business aspect either. I can think of a number of times that I've done a lot of personal trips with these individuals over the years. And so I think it's really about that investment in time. And once you get to know someone, I think it takes it's no different than having a friend, right? You have good friends, and you're good friends because you're like-minded, and, you know that they're there to have your back. And same thing on the vendor side. It's no different than that in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm always interested, you got to keep learning. You got to keep asking, what partners need. It can't just be what we need. Right. So,
yeah, you're right.
So, well, I really appreciate you coming on. I just wanted to end with like, if you had some events coming up or any fun things that Renodis is doing, or like what, tell me about that.
Yeah, we do. So I'm very passionate about trying to cure cancer. So during COVID, American Cancer Society was going through some tough revenue year. So we spun up, just literally off the client with a CIO that was going through cancer. Him and I spun up a CIOs against, we didn't call it that at the time, but it was CIOs against cancer shoot that we did. And the first year we raised like 20 grand. This year we're on target to raise, so that was 2020. This year we're on target to raise $500,000. And I think we're going to crush that.
Wow.
So we spun up a CIOs Against Cancer Michigan on Friday. That event already, it's full. We've got 100 people. We've got 137 people coming. We got 90 shooters. That event's already raised $65,000. And then in September, we've got our Minnesota one, which is where it originated. And like I said, we're already at $500,000 right now that we've raised. And, we see that thing next year raising $1 million. And the great thing is for every 250 we raise, it funds a cancer research project.
Wow.
So yeah, this year we'll fund 2. Next year we'll probably be able to fund 3 or 4.
That's amazing.
Well, like Jeff and I, Jeff Mader is the individual that him and I took this under our wing. We always said, how cool would it be if we could fund one project that saves a life, just one life.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, that's pretty important to us. So
that's amazing.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Well, that's amazing that you're crushing the goal, and I can't wait to check in with you here in a little while and see what else you have going on. And again, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anywhere that folks can find you or reach out to you?
Yeah, hit me on LinkedIn. Best place. Yep. I'm
short and sweet.
I'm very active on LinkedIn, and all you have to do is pull me up. So
I love it.
Yep.
Well, sir, Mr. Craig Beason, I appreciate it. We'll end it there, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Channel Champions podcast. You can find this and all our episodes on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite streaming platforms. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, guests, or topics, please reach out to us. We appreciate you coming along with us on this journey and hope you'll be back for the next episode. Until then, Stay tuned, stay connected, and stay inspired.